On this week's episode of the Superhero Show, we'll find out if Hugh Sr. can keep his sanity while hopped up on V-Juice on The Boys. If Brainiac has good intentions on My Adventures with Superman. And just who is the mysterious Green Goblin on Spider-Man, the animated series. All of that and more on an all-new episode of the Superhero Show. Hello, nerds, and welcome to the Superhero Show, the only podcast that covers every single one of the best TV shows based on comic books that we decide is good enough to watch that week. Clear and easy? Good. I'm your host for the evening, Mike, and I'm very glad to have you here with us, listeners. Normally here I'd be like, and of course is Cassie, but you know she's not here because I'm the one talking. And Ryan, nope, nobody's here. I'm here alone, which seems hard. I started to write. I had just an audio essay per show of this week, and I was like, that's going to be hard to get out. You guys don't want to hear me read. So I hopped on the horn, called friend of the show, Nate Regolia. Nate, how the hell are you?
Hey, I'm great. Thank you for having me on. This is a unique honor. I've never been on Superhero Show before, and I won't bury the lead. I had not really watched a lot of these things, so you're going to get entirely isolated takes on midstream content.
I love that. So it's just going to be a unique opinion. How did these things exist in a vacuum when you haven't seen every minute of them? And I didn't realize that we go back and forth on each other's shows so much. I did not even realize you haven't done Superhero Show. You're on Move of the Year. Like, it feels like at least once or twice a season. And then tell everybody, we'll do a quick plug up top here. Tell everybody about your show, Debut Buddies.
Yeah, Debut Buddies is a fortnightly podcast about firsts. We most recently released an episode about the first professional wrestling match, which is kind of a disputable thing, but I think we found the one. We found the one moment where kayfabe really kind of took hold in the way wrestling was done professionally. Great stuff. We talk about first movies, first books, first all kinds of things. Sometimes the conceit is as stupid as this is the first time Nate has seen Mamma Mia, and we did that. So it's
that's the first Mamma Mia movie.
It also is the first Mamma Mia movie. It's true.
The last time I was on, because I've had the pleasure of being on a handful of times, it was the first superhero.
That's right.
Which was also controversial because there's, several that could be argued.
There's so many. There's so little evidence to why one would take supremacy. At all. But I mean, you crushed that episode because you came with a wealth of knowledge, and we came at you with our usual, this show is kind of a mess, so enjoy. And it was a lot of fun.
It's fun teaching.
Yeah.
When you don't have to actually do lesson plans. And so good questions, and some of the knowledge is hard won and lived, and some I was on Wikipedia earlier that day.
Sure.
So
yeah.
But I always have a blast deep diving.
Yeah. Oh, it's so much fun. We're prepping. We just did an episode on the first Nathan's hot dog eating competition. That'll be out later this year. But that was a fun bit of research because there's these things that just happen in the world all the time, and you never really think to look at them twice. What a joy! What a joy to spend.
But somebody had to sit down and plan it.
Yeah,
and be like, "No, we're doing this. Here are the rules."
There's a board of shadowy figures behind everything, and unless you think to look, you don't know what they're doing.
And it's almost always good, though, right?
Oh,
the shadowy figures.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, come on. What evidence do we have that there's anything bad going on?
What is your favorite activity, thing, event that shadowy figures controlled?
Ooh. There's so many, but I think I'm just going to go with the obvious one, global politics and economics. I think that's so great that we have this shadowy figures,
Yeah. And that's everything's going swell in that.
Oh, I mean, haven't you seen the numbers? They're great. Through the roof.
Thanks, Cabal. We really like what you're up to. Fortunately, that's not what we're here to talk about because that would be depressing. We're here to talk about pure escapism. Nothing we cover tonight has anything to do, any relation, any inspiration of reality. We are, of course, going to talk about the latest episode of My Adventures with Superman, Sweet Tooth, the Spider-Man, the animated series. We're going to get to that. But before all that, The Boys. Oh, The Boys is heavily inspired by reality.
It is true. I'm going to go out on a limb. The Boys might be a little too woke.
On this week's episode of The Boys, it's VotCon, and the Seven are announcing phases 7 through 19 of their cinematic universe. Meanwhile, the boys get Stan Edgar out of prison to help him track down the soup-killing virus from Gen V, which leads to the boys and Stan teaming up with Newman to survive V'd-up carnivorous farm animals. Meanwhile, Huey's dad is killing people with his new phasing powers, and he does not know what's going on. Tasty Nate, I ask you this. How did the emotional scenes with the Campbell family hit amongst the wackiness of the show?
I honestly was really torn about this as I was watching it because Simon Pegg is very close to my heart as an actor, and so it's just, and this show, like I've watched all The Boys, so this one I didn't watch isolated in a vacuum. I've been keeping up with everything. It kind of worked. It kind of didn't work. Like, it's one of those things for me where this show always walks that line of ultra violence and camp. And this really was like, the ending was heartbreaking. The ending was perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I think that the way that Hugh dies is really like it that was the end of my night. I had to like sit and think about that, and it stuck with me. It's one of those moments. I
didn't know Pegg had that in him.
No, me neither.
Like, this is like the hardest I've ever seen him act.
To act that hard and maintain the American accent that is actually pretty believable was awesome. I think all of his confusion, dementia stuff worked. I think that the horror in that worked. It was just sort of a little weird for me to balance with flying sheep monsters as the intercut.
I get what you're saying there, but like I don't know. I was shocked how much it won me over, because even his, like, normally when there's gore, it is for goofs, and here the gore is it is horror. So Hugh Sr. wakes up from his coma because they V'd him up.
Yeah.
He doesn't remember a lot of things. He doesn't know what year it is necessarily. He's like, no, Huey's 11.
He remembered, though, importantly, the dog that Huey had, that Huey kept keeping alive, and he put down because he didn't want, and he says, I don't want to end up like that dog. And it's some of the best foreshadowing writing that you could do in a show like that. Because right when he said that, I was like, oh, fuck. I know exactly where this episode's going now. There is no way he gets out of this alive.
Right when he wakes up and he still is kind of retaining his memory before he starts like blipping in and out, both memory-wise blipping in and out and physically blipping in and out. It really is holding, and even though he's young, like connecting dementia to the physical realm, because he basically gets Kate Pryde's powers and is phasing in and out and is killing people accidentally at first. But then we've learned that V makes everybody a little violent, especially if you don't know what's going on. But he does see his wife who left them and cannot remember that they've sort of made up. But yeah, I think the stuff with Pegg, Jack Quaid, and Rosemary DeWitt, all of them, I did not know this show could do that emotions.
It was very tender, yeah. I think it was all really... Rosemary DeWitt was epically good, too. She has been so good in this arc of this season, playing the like, hey, I'm kind of the cool detached person who I'm going to act like none of this matters to me and it doesn't bother me, to, hey, I had to leave you for a reason. And it's a really, previous episodes, it's a really good reason. It's like, it's a very believable postpartum situation where it's like, this wasn't going to work for me, to this where there's reconciliation occurring. Yeah. And you feel like, oh, this family could come back together. And ultimately they do. I mean, that is a beautiful thing of the writing. Like, as we're talking about this, I'm convincing myself more and more how well it did work, because it is such a like bringing the trio together And as like an only child myself, like the idea and of divorced parents, no less, the idea of my parents coming together in that kind of moment is would be beautiful. It's no longer possible, but it's like a beautiful idea, and they really execute it well. That it's just
And
all
what I like is four seasons in, I think a lot of shows would rest on their laurels and be like, we know what we're doing here. But I don't think we've seen something this mature from the boys of a plot line. Like they'll split. There's a lot of teammates, right? So we've always had numerous plot lines that they juggle those well, but it's always like, what zany sexual thing is this guy up to versus what deep, dark, violent thing is this guy up to? So yeah, I thought to jump from killer farm animals, which was super funny and very like straight down I was trying to use a sports analogy and I realized I don't know anything about sports, but like straight across home plate, boys tone was the killer farm animals to this like kind of legit horrifying / tender moments of the Campbell story. Yeah, I didn't know they had that in them. And to still want to evolve this many seasons in, I think is pretty cool.
It's epically cool. And all of the farm animal stuff was fun. Like
so fun.
The first chicken that bursts through somebody's chest.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, here we go. I mean,
so silly.
Yeah.
And like we don't know where Zoe is, and I thought it was going to lead to her like controlling the farm animals. Or I like that it can keep you guessing once you're like, oh, here's what's going on. No, we don't know. And then the bull, making the beat up bull look like it was going to be like the biggest issue, but then the flying carnivorous sheep destroy that bull in the second flat.
Yeah.
And are actually the big danger of the rest of the episode for that team. And in a very like Fast and the Furious style way, or any comic book really, of like, well, now different parts, different bad guys and our heroes all have to team up if they want to make it out of here alive at all. Thrilling.
The mix of that with then the Cucker Tarleson storyline too that's going on.
Tarleson. Wow. Very well done.
I mean, it's character appropriate. That's like all of it really was an excellent episode. I mean, the announcement of the next multiple series of films thing, the fact that you're sitting there going like, oh yeah, this is exactly how boring all of this stuff is in real life. And also how devoted everybody is. Yeah. I'm really just generally impressed with this season. Like really feeling, to your point, fourth season, you could see them going like, all we got to do is sort of bring the plane toward the runway so we can land it soon. And instead they're like, no, we're really going to do a lot of serious stuff and we're going to do it well.
How do you feel the other superhero showians who aren't here today? Cassie and Caitlin just don't watch the show, but there's not a big bad, right? Like we had Stormfront holding one season together and the Soldier Boy last season. And right now it is pretty disparate. Like, where is this season going? Does that bother you not having like dedicated momentum, or do you think they're juggling those disparate plots pretty well?
I think what's cool, I mean, what I'm reading the big bad to be this season is ideology. It's not about an individual person. It's literally about like the toxicity of the way that we are trying to deal with things. It's like the big bad is a combination of capitalism and authoritarianism, and it's right there. It's through everything.
Right.
That's just all.
Which it kind of always has been in the background. They're foregrounded even more.
Yeah, because it's always been alluded to, but you know the winks are turning into full-on blinks and elbowings in the side, you know?
Yeah.
And I think it's working really effectively because it's always sort of saying like, hey, your task here is to confront why people tell the stories they tell. And I think that's really cool from a metatextual standpoint too, because The Boys is a story. It's telling a story, and they have a motivation for the story they're telling. So they're kind of telling you to like look back in on themselves. Which is why having the Hugh's dad beat, that having that whole thing happen is so important, because it does get us back to, hey, remember, these are people. They aren't just all avatars for different ideas. They are people.
Yes. And I think the show's doing that in a lot of ways. I think the Campbell story is doing that the most and the hardest, but the emotions are cranked up in a way throughout Butcher's sickness. And he's one of the most cartoonish characters, really. But like, I like it because it works to the character. He's dealing with the heaviest parts alone, but he is dealing with inevitable death. I am a piece of shit. I do have to save this kid. Frenchie and Kamiko are both dealing with parts of their past and hitting more emotional. Annie dealing with that, like, she hasn't been always this great superheroine, and the wool was revealed from her eyes, so now she can actually do good. We're learning more about her past and been like, she's fucked up in different ways, and some of them I don't think are actual fuck ups, like the abortion, and some are fuck ups, like being a bully on the pageant circuit, and like she's dealing with it's not just like the machine of the world has made bad things happen. Choices I made are also coming back.
Yeah, it's really a show that is it's anchoring itself in the idea that like individual choices combined with pettiness lead to everything that goes wrong with everything, right?
Yes,
like
facts.
There is a petty sort of individual choice even in giving Hugh the V to bring him back to life, right? And it has an immediate negative consequence. It's the fast boil versus the slow boil of all of the things with Firecracker and everything else, where it's just like, literally everyone is just resenting so much stuff, and no one is processing anything in an adult way, which is, I think, why it's interesting that the end of this episode is Senator lady whose name I don't remember.
Newman, the VP.
That Newman is coming back to her dad.
Right.
To be like, okay, I'm rescuing you and we're going to go do a thing. And that's
which is also showing every decision you make will hurt you in the future. They dealt with Stan Edgar because they thought in that moment they had to. They bought him out of jail, and they're like, no, we're going to send you back to jail. It didn't work out. No harm, no foul. But they basically released a new villain back onto the game board that hadn't been there.
Yeah, and now what? Who knows what's going to happen? Right there could be a civil war sort of thing between the two of them. They could join forces and do something incredible, but it's just really they are playing with all of the pieces to extend your metaphor. They're playing with all the pieces really well. They're really taking, no one is getting taken out of the toy chest just to be there. Everything does feel strategic and does feel effective, and I love that.
Because at the same time, so Newman and Edgar are now going to do their own thing. The permanent big bad Homelander is gathering his soups, the Seven, to be like, no, I think we might actually need to just literally take over. It's not enough to do it in like a capitalistic sort of way, figureheady sort of way, but no, we might just become gods. And kind of switch from Marvel style superheroes of like, and aren't we people, to DC style superheroes? Because like it truly become the Justice League, because that's the big difference, right? Marvel, they're humans first, and in DC they are gods, and humans just have to deal with them. And he's embracing the bad side of the DC side of it. It's like, no, we should be gods and probably just rule countries.
That speech that he gives near the end of the episode, right before they beat up Cucker. Beat him to death, probably. We don't see the mush pile at the end of the episode, but that speech is so, it's such a perfect, like, fascist, hey, look, I've fully embraced everything about my ideology now. I'm not confused. I'm not trying to figure out who to listen to. Like, he's gone from season 1 being a baby boy nursing literally at his boss's teat to now he's like, no, you know what? I am actually the pinnacle of all things, and so that's it. Like, we're not even going to ask questions anymore. And that's terrifying.
And learning that, like, I think it's awesome for the show, but terrifying for the characters. Ryan being like, hey, I don't want to be an actor. I think that's dumb. I want to help people. And Homelander's like, sure, I'll help you do that. And does it in the creepiest way possible. And then Homelander being like, no, I think the kid's right. We should help. But his version of help is worse than his version of hurting.
Because we saw in the previous episode, his version of helping is like, well, I'm going to go back and kill all the people who tortured and studied me.
Right.
Brutally. And that will right a wrong in the world. And that's his whole mindset now, is that all the wrongs are just anybody who stands in his way
is wrong.
Right. I mean, he really just stands up and says, okay, we haven't been directly othering literally everybody, but now we're just going to. We're the best. Everyone else is terrible, and we can do whatever we want.
Yeah. Did you watch Gen V?
I did not.
Okay. Good. But you don't waste your time. But also, I was gonna ask if you were confused at all because they're both characters and plot stuff from Gen V is finally coming to the boys.
Okay.
And like, could you? There's two young kids who were up there in the VotCon, but then we're also in the Tower of Seven, who were there hearing his speech. Were you confused at all while they were there, or?
I assumed they were Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver surrogates, and that's all I needed to know. Like, I was just like,
Nice.
oh, cool. Kind of looks like Elizabeth Olsen. Kind of looks like that other guy. Like, whatever. This works. I get what they're going for. You know, they got set up as they're going to have a limited series on whatever network. So, okay, cool. And I just figured that, to your point about kind of assembling the Justice League, is that this is Homelander's just going to take the most pliable and most dangerous people and put them together.
Yes.
And so they are probably on the pliable end of things, but extremely dangerous. That's my guess.
She touches people, can make them do anything.
Okay, so she is Scarlet Witch, at least.
And
Avengers.
But like
Scarlet
narrowed
Witch.
down, but like I touch you and I say a thing and now you're doing it.
Okay.
And then he is schizophrenic, like sees the world in cartoons under puppet vision sometimes. And I'm trying to remember his actual power. I think like near immortal, like crazy strong, vicious. I'm really blanking. Gen V was terrible.
I mean, that just seeing the world in puppet vision sounds kind of cool. Like that should be a thing that happens. But yeah, I'm cool to skip it.
It is. I liked it when 30 Rock did it first. But that's neither here nor there. The boy still rules. And that is all the time we have. You can watch it on Amazon Prime week to week. Nate, something we do here before we're going to jump to the pull list next. But first, you're our guest. Often we sit here and talk about websites we're creating. So what website are you working on currently? Are you cooking anything up that you think our listeners should check out?
I have mostly been designing book covers for upcoming releases from Spaceboy Books. So
Nice.
We have we put out 6 books this year already. We got 6 more coming before the end of the year. I've been working on some really amazing things. There's a book that's a coming of age about a young android girl trying to figure out why she exists and what her purpose is going to be. I've got a really cool book about a group of teenagers who disappear into the woods and come back decades later proclaiming that they found Eden and that the way to live in it is to behave animalistically. There's a lot of wild stuff coming down the pipe. So, I mean, I've been updating that website, but yeah, doing a lot of just art and design work and manuscript formatting, that kind of stuff.
Well, that is awesome. And I bet it is hard and to come up with book ideas. And so I think we're now going to create script.net. And so people go, I want a book about this. And it's just going to churn out a whole outline so people can pitch.
I love that. Not AI, though.
No, it won't be AI. It's people write it in, and then you and I and another panel of people will then like sit for a weekend coked out and then turn back their idea. And so we want this website to look good. So we're going to have to, we don't, that's already a lot of work in writing. We don't want to churn out another website and do all the coding. So we're going to go to our friends at cybersprout.net. They are well-versed in digital strategy and elegant design. They combine the two of those. Their websites have easy-to-edit fields, custom templates, drag-and-drop tools. They are always available if you need help. They're going to handle speed optimization, maintenance, security. That is our friends at cybersprout.net. We're going to take the quick breaks, and when we come back, every other show that came out this week. It is time for the pull list where we talk about every other show that came out this week, starting with My Adventures with Superman. This week on Mars, Clark wakes up in a red space coffin and Kara tries to convince him they'll bring back the glorious empire of Krypton together. She invites him to meet Brainiac, who raised her, and they both learn about all the civilizations Brainiac has conquered and destroyed via Kara. Tasty Nate, I ask you this. How long do you think, in episode time or the character's real world time, I guess, how long do you think it'll take for Kara to jump to Clark's side to take down Primus Brainiac?
I feel like... Okay, 2 things. I might have watched the wrong episode.
Oh no.
Because I watched a dating related episode.
The dating, like the dating panel?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was last week's.
That was the previous one. That's my bad.
That was the previous week's. So
but I will say, I can answer your question based on that episode alone, which is that
sure,
she's going to jump immediately because she loved ice cream and hot dogs so much that there is no way she is going to turn whole hog against Earth forever. She's going to be on Clark's side in no time. Yes, and she loves Jimmy. The blushing that happened was perfect.
Peak blush. In this week's episode, Clark is on her ship and she's very like, no, Kryptonians don't have to feel. This is the way things are going. But then he finds a little shrine to stuff she liked on Earth and other planets she went to, like a toy from Thangar. Thangar is where Hawkman and Hawkgirl are from. For those listeners who don't know that. I think there's hints of like there's some Green Lantern hints in this one. There's Parademon hints in this one. So from Apocalypse. So this one episode expanded the Superman universe a lot. There's a lot of more hints of stuff to come. But he also finds a shrine to Jimmy, and they're like at the photo album, the photo booth pictures and stuff. And so he knows she's not all unfeeling, which we've seen hints at. And also, so she gets glitched. And we learn Brainiac is literally mind controlling her at times. She tries to show Clark Thangar to be like, no, joining the new Kryptonian Empire rules. And it's a dead planet. And she's like, I don't know what's going on there. And so when we finally meet Brainiac, he's like, hey, I'm going to talk to your cousin Clark. You just go in your space cot. And she grabs a spaceship and checks out all the planets she's been to. And they are all dead and destroyed. And so she's slowly realizing what she has become.
She's turned into the Silver Surfer.
She's totally Silver Surfer for Brainiac's Galacticus, because we're our Marvel family here.
Yeah.
So let's analogize to that. But she didn't know.
Sure.
So she like wipes her and then just controls her like a puppet and makes her kill things. And so it is a version of Supergirl I've not seen, by adding sprinkles of Silver Surfer, and I like it a lot.
I was deeply surprised by the incorrect episode that I watched, where I was just like, oh, okay, this is cute. She's coming to Earth for the first time. She's gonna have these experiences, whatever. And then I just assumed it would end on an up note. And that episode took such a wonderful turn to go, nope, suddenly this is going to be the darkest possible shit, plus the lowest breakup and things. This show is insanely good. I have only watched the one episode that I have watched, and I am going to watch every single one now. I'm going to start from the beginning because I was blown away. It perfectly mixes the humor and the earnestness and the superhero-ness. Like it's Andy Samberg, right? Who's Superman?
Jack Quaid.
Oh, it's Jack Quaid. Okay.
This is actually called the Jack Quaid Hour now.
Great.
Because he's, and I think I say this all the time, he is the perfect argument for Nepo babies. He is so good and talented. I'm in love with him.
Yeah, he's very good.
He shows up on Comedy Bang Bang a lot.
I was going to say exactly that. He's always good on Comedy Bang Bang because he gets it. And then he always plays...
Dr. J?
No, Dr. John. The blues guy. The New Orleans blues guy, yeah.
Yes.
Which is just...
Dr. J is an old basketball player.
Yes.
That's my
he played for the Philadelphia 76ers. You should know that because that's where you're from.
That's why he's in my head, even though I'm not a sports star. I'm glad he's not playing Dr. J, because Dr. J was a man of color.
That would be inappropriate,
we don't want Jack Quaid to do that.
No, we do not.
So yeah, we love Jack Quaid. The show rules. And I've been a Superman fan for a long time, in a way like it seems uncool to be, and people are like, oh, he's like overpowered and it's boring. I was like, well, nah, I mean, they tell stories and all the bad guys are equal in power. Like, it's about the storytelling. Like that I think that's a very surface level critique, and now I love that there's a modern thing I can point to and be like, no, watch Moz and you'll see why Superman rules, because these creators get it. Fuck Zack Snyder.
Yeah,
these people get what makes Superman.
Yeah, Superman is ultimately like, he's a well-meaning doofus who's
generous
OP.
And kind and loving.
Yeah, and I love this presentation of him. I love the way that, you know, he's like nervous. He's like a nervous man who he's not like, I'm all powerful and scared. He's not Homelander, right? Which is effectively all Zack Snyder wants Superman to be.
Right.
He's just a nice guy. He's a nice guy who's like, oh, which is why we would love him anyway. It's the idea that what if a culture of people all wished they could do something good to help, and then we give them, well, this guy's good and he can do something to help. Let's look to him. It's great.
Right.
It's beautiful.
It's beautiful. I know you watched a different episode, but what was the moment of your week for the episode you watched?
Oh man. Honestly, like all of the Jimmy and Kara stuff was amazing. I was already in, like I was fully enjoying everything. And then that happened and I was like, oh man, like I love a well-executed montage, and especially a fish out of water montage where it's just like, this is going to be a person anime eating incredible quantities of food and
the glizzies the girls caught it last week.
Great. Yeah. So that,
which I don't know when the youth started to call hot dogs glizzies, but they said it and I'm like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of scares me a little bit, but I'm good with it. The other thing that really kind of made my week was Lois is so small on this show.
Yeah.
Like she's so small, and literally like Superman's hands like go all the way around her head. It's like watching Shaq palm a basketball.
Yes. Mine is the fight between Superman and holographic Green Lantern, Parademon, and Thangarian was dope. And also, like, it was well executed. Choreography was rad. And also the expansion of the universe was exciting for the nerd in me. And then Kara, when she is funny and not like totally like a mutilator, when she's like beating up on Clark to get him to be like, no, you got to be a real Kryptonian. She says, all that soft living has made your brain bad and weak. And just that sentence tickled me. It's made your brain bad and weak, I think will be said a lot in my household. My Adventures with Superman is on Max. New episodes every Sunday morning. Next up is Sweet Tooth. In episodes 306 and 307 of Sweet Tooth, Gus meets somebody well-versed in hybrid history and finds the cave. And then there's inevitable chaos at the outpost. Tasty Nate, I ask you this. I didn't have time to watch any Sweet Tooth, and I know you watched one, but it was the first episode of Sweet Tooth you've ever watched. So, what animal would you want to be a hybrid with?
Oh, man. I'm not sure what the rules are, but I would always choose a bird. That's like that's what I would hybridize with, just on the hopes that you get a little bit of flight, even if it's just like
a little bit of flight.
Being able to jump and kind of flap a couple times to extend that. That would be great.
Yeah, a soarer.
Yeah, that's all I want. I just want to be able to glide a little bit, right? Like you know, the idea of sort of floating into a room, like you're on a hoverboard, but you're not on a hoverboard. That would be cool.
That would be cool. Listeners, I apologize. Couldn't watch it. You know, I do love that show. If you want to hear about Sweet Tooth episodes, I think you should check out the podcast Candymen from the network Comic Book Club. They're doing a great recap over there. And hopefully we'll have time the coming week. There's a lot of time off. It's a holiday week. So I'll do my due diligence and celebrate the country the only way I know how, by staying inside and watching TV.
Staying away from other people in the country. What I will say about that, the episode 306 that I watched, a lot of cool things came together. I could tell.
Nice.
Just knowing storytelling. I was like, oh.
I bet if I had been watching this would be nuts.
No, that's exactly what I thought. I watched it last night. I was sitting on my couch going like, okay, I have no idea who any of these people are or what's going on. I can understand that this little boy's name is Gus. That's it. Yes. I've got that much. And then it's just new person, new thing. This is coming. It felt like it was a very monumental turning point kind of episode. Nice. So super cool. And I'll probably go back and watch it now because I'm intrigued to figure out what the hell's going on.
And the seasons are pretty short, and you should. It's so good. It's so endearing. I'm a big fan.
Is that endearing with two E's?
Yes, of course.
Great.
I was going to try to make a sound of deer mix, but I don't think they make sounds. That is all the shows this week. We're going to once again take the quickest breaks. And when we come back, take a little trip to an island we call as Tasmania. And we are back, listeners. I am sorry to tell you, look, I was going to come up with some goofy thing, but I'm going to show a little leg, reveal behind the curtain. Nate and I watched 2 different episodes of Spider-Man the Animated Series, and that can happen. And it once did happen on this show where Ryan and I watched 2 different episodes of a show called Powerless, which was a DC sitcom starring Vanessa Hudgens and Ron Funches. And We didn't know. We talked for the whole 10 minutes, and only after did we realize we watched different episodes. But that's because that show was light, fluff, and bad, which is why nobody knows it happened. Where Spider-Man is a dense, rich text. And since we go second by second breakdown, there is no way we could have a successful Tasmania segment having watched two separate episodes. So, Nate, I apologize to you.
It's quite all right. We might. Which episode did you watch? Did you watch the one before it?
I watched the Green Goblin episode.
Okay. Is that
which was, I believe, the episode before?
Is that 304? Because I mean, we could probably talk about it. I did watch that too. I watched.
Did you really?
I watched like 4 episodes because I was like, oh, this is cool. I got to get a little context. I'm in the middle of the stream here.
I love it. Okay, so I'm going to dive into my normal welcome to Tasmania, bitch, a mini show within a show where we dive into the seminal and underrated after-school cartoon of the mid-90s, Spider-Man, the animated series. On this week's episode, Enter the Green Goblin, Osborn and Abaldi are using this chemical cauldron, and they're like, we got to get the evil gas ready, but is it going to be ready? I don't know. And then we cut to J. Jonah Jameson published like a teardown of the chemical weapons being used, even though they're all friends. He's meeting with Kingpin, Mrs. Hardy, and Norman, and they're all arguing who is at fault for the chemical weapons and stuff. And Felicia Hardy's mom is like, we're going to replace Norman Osborn. Are you tracking? Did you watch this episode?
I'm following. I'm with you.
Okay.
There's a whole lot of Felicia stuff in my head because a
whole lot of Felicia stuff.
Let's
so again, normally, because Spider-Man is such a weird segment we do here where we do second by second breakdown. Let's do themes. Let's do plot lines. We're not going to break down the way we normally do. Let's dig into Felicia. How do you like this version of Felicia Hardy as a love interest for Peter Parker?
She feels okay. I got to say something generally about this show real quick because I hadn't watched this since like 1994-ish.
Right.
And in watching it, I was sort of blown away by just everybody here is, I don't know how old anybody is because they're all hulking like 20-something-year-old people, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody is massive and muscly and everything else. That said, I think Felicia's an absolutely interesting love interest because she is this. What she's giving us is kind of the Spider-Man 2. Is Spider-Man 2 the movie where they make out, where Mary Jane makes out with him with the mask?
I think that's the first one.
Or is that the first one? That's probably the first one,
Yeah.
Anyway, it's very much like, oh, hey, I can see the breadcrumb of that exact moment in the way this episode ends. Because it's the same, like, I'm just going to pull your mask up, I'm going to kiss you on the mouth, deal with it. And it's kind of...
Because at this point, Spider-Man has saved her so many times. And all the men who are actually in her life, including Peter Parker, have flaked on her a bunch. So Spider-Man is kind of the most consistent male figure. And Felicia, even though she's rich and gorgeous, does not have the healthiest self-esteem.
No.
And she's like, I'm going to kiss this masked stranger, even though I clearly have post-traumatic stress disorder from being kidnapped and thrown off of a flying hobgoblin.
She has bodyguard syndrome, right? Like,
yes. For sure.
Kevin Costner's fine, but when you're forced to be around him in traumatic instances all the time, then you're going to fall in love with him. I like it as an obviously ill-fated, not going to go anywhere sort of situation because it just she's interested in the fake man,
right?
Like she's interested in the posture that Peter is able to give, and it's not. There's nothing behind there, right? And like actual Peter is interested in her, but unable to keep her attention.
And she's turned down Peter on dates.
Yeah.
And she's laughed at him, be like, no, we're just friends and you help me study. We're not going on a date.
Yeah.
And at this point, because it's been years, she went through the whole Morbius saga, like, and she was dating Michael Morbius when he was just a human. And they're like, she's run through the gamut. This is a show where we hate most of the characters. They're all like kind of the worst versions of them. Like this is the douchiest Peter Parker.
Yeah.
He's a dickhead.
He's hard to
She
watch
might be the standout.
because he's so douchey when he's Peter Parker. Because part of the problem is everybody here is like, it feels like an 80s movie because all of the everybody's played by a 35-year-old. And so Peter is just this like fully realized adult man who is occasionally acting like he sort of doesn't understand how things work. But generally speaking, he's just kind of a scumbag.
Yeah, a bit of it. He has total nice guy syndrome, which is big in the 90s of like, but I'm nice, so shouldn't you fuck me? No, bro. Like, you're not.
Tuck your shirt in.
You are a loser. Don't wear the same shirt every goddamn day.
Yeah, come on. Costume changes.
So this Spider-Man lore has flipped it. So we met Hobgoblin a couple of seasons ago. How do you think the origin of the Green Goblin, how did that play off here?
I liked it. I thought it worked really well. It was, I was sort of surprised that it was going to happen here. I guess because of how late in the series it is and having not really watched anything in a while, it was just like, really? We're waiting until like this far in?
What I think the show does really well is planting seeds. So we met Norman Osborn a season and a half ago, but he's just like tycoon who's maybe a little neglectful of his son. Like,
sure,
that was it. And like kind of under the Kingpin's thumb. Like, so you don't even know if he was a bad guy doing bad stuff or if Wilson Fisk made him.
He's something of a patsy himself.
Again here. He's something of a patsy himself. And here Fisk is obviously bullying him and rushing him. He's like, I don't care if these chemicals are dangerous. Keep fucking going. I know, as Wilson Fisk on your board, I said, I don't know. Maybe you should stop. I'm letting you on the goddamn Kingpin. You will not stop. In fact, you will go faster.
Yeah.
And it's that haste and panic that leads to the creation of the Green Goblin. And they did an awesome bait and switch of like, is Harry? Like, we find out from MJ to Peter that Harry does have a temper.
Yeah.
And he's kind of unhinged sometimes because he's an isolated rich boy. And then Peter keeps seeing Harry being in weird places, acting like a weirdo, and then the Green Goblin appears. And so it was, I think, because it's the remixed story and thinking of it aimed at little kids, like, I think it was pretty well executed.
I thought it was great because, to your point, knowing that Norman showed up a couple seasons prior, like, the whole thing read like, oh, this is kind of a person we all know. He's a recurring character, but he's a recurring background character. So you feel bad. You actually do feel bad that he's literally, he's forced by a serious, like, he's forced by the Kingpin to outwork what is safe. Like, it's an OSHA violation that results in a supervillain.
And did not pick that up on that as a kid, but like the level of detail that like OSHA violation is supervillain. And then also we get some like Succession, like, here's how a board works. Yeah, you golf together and you're friends, but when it comes down to the money, we're going to fucking oust you out of your company named after you, buddy.
Which is yet another, this is another reason why it boggles my mind. I'm going to get a little real world for a second, but it boggles my mind that so many people from our generation are still capable of like being mystified by business as if it's not just a bunch of self-serving people in these circumstances making bad choices. Because it's right here. Like, this story is not outlandish. It's fairly directly how things happen a lot, right? Like, it's how you get a Boeing jet that has a door that falls off in the middle of in the middle of a flight. Like, there's Wilson
Somebody was like, we could make 10 more cents a plane if we just rush.
Yeah, if we just don't use these bolts, we save an hour of work time. It's great. Do it. Yeah.
I think part of why it's not just like ignorance and blind hope, but I think it's also what businesses and the 1% are actually good at is PR and hiding behind, like, it's this Byzantine labyrinth. You don't know what's going on at all. The rules are so hard. How could you have to go to school and get a master's to understand? But no, it all comes down to like pretty basic morals and easy meetings.
Yeah.
And everything else. It's the same reason why legalese is so dense. It's so lawyers can have jobs.
Oh, sure. And yet at the same time, if you learn how to read it, it says almost nothing most of the time.
Yes.
It's
30 pages of fluff.
It does everything that you are taught in writing school not to do. It's passive voice. It's overly complicated and florid. Yeah. But I think the Green Goblin was super effective. I loved seeing the classic Green Goblin look.
Yeah.
That mask, that whole thing was so cool.
I love that the chemicals that drove Norman mad also changed Hobgoblin's. They melted the Hobgoblin outfit into a green and purple Green Goblin outfit. Those are cool, powerful chemicals.
Yeah. There's a little tie-dye mixed in there just to keep it interesting.
And I'd say as much as we dog on this version of Spider-Man and Peter, he was a good dude. And even though, and he walked through it and he's like, what's bad for Harry could be for Peter because, I like Mary Jane too. It's like, no, Harry's in such a rough spot. He lost his dad. I shouldn't take advantage of anybody in a vulnerable situation. And then continues that through and doesn't tell Harry that Green Goblin was his dad.
Yeah.
He makes a lot of good decisions. It feels like, and I can't remember the rest of the show, but it feels like maybe Peter is finally growing up and maturing. I bet he's going to let me down next episode, but it feels like he's turning around and actually becoming kind of a good person.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to see that maybe Peter wouldn't just immediately join a lacrosse team and do the things that a lacrosse team member might do. Because he really does. It was huge. That is such a nice emotional beat to just not tell the truth. And I think that's one of those other interesting lessons in 90s television of, hey, sometimes you just have to not. Like, honesty is important, but sometimes thoughtful dishonesty is the better way to go. And it's true.
It is true. Radical honesty is not always best. I don't think I told you about awards. And this has already been all over the place. If I'm going to just throw phrases at you and whatever speak from the heart. So you just said 90s moment.
Mm-hmm.
And so would you say that is your 90s moment of the week?
Yeah. I agree.
Okay.
I think that is my 90s moment of the week.
I think that's better than mine, which is magical gas that does whatever you need it to do as a plot creator.
That is a good 90s moment.
Which is like, let's jump over some stuff. Web Zinger. What is the best one-liner of the episode? Did anything pop out?
Ooh. I feel like Felicia ditching Peter was the zinger that it's just like, it's so effective that she's like capable of dismissing him and walking off. I love that.
There wasn't a lot of puns in this one, but the one I did like is when at this point Green Goblin has his whole board and MJ chained up, and he has his judge's outfit on, and he's the trial for Norman Osborn. Spider-Man webs in and he goes, all you megalomaniacs have such a weird sense of humor. It's not zingy or punny, but it is a good what? You guys, you laugh at a lot of stuff that's not funny.
I forgot about that judge's outfit too. And that is also maybe that's a good contender for the most 90s moment. Because you remember, so there's a judge there. They're like the first episodes of Star Trek The Next Generation, Q becomes an old style judge to judge humanity. Like that whole idea of villains taking on like vestiges of the legal system to be like, I will now take control of this.
To make my pseudo court real, I have to wear the robe.
Yeah, of course. You need the robe, you need the powdered wig. Like these are important elements.
Do you have New York City as a character? What's the most New York moment that stands out to you from any of this?
Ooh. Yeah, I wish I had something good. I feel like the thing that I clocked most was how there's those moments where they're doing like an early CG sort of thing when he's web swinging. And I was like, maybe that's it. It's just like New York coming to life and being very static and lacking in detail.
I wish it wasn't real life so it wouldn't smell so bad. There's also a lot of two towers shots in this episode.
Oh, shit. Okay,
which is wild. But I think the most New York to me is that Norman Osborn dies. So the board is like, I guess Harry's in charge. Harry, are you in charge? He's like, I'm not a boy. I am a real man, just like my father. And I will take control of this company. I'm like, fuck New York and its companies.
It's Succession, baby.
It is. It's all Succession. Kung Fu Grip. Is there a cool action move or fight move that stands out?
Oh man. Okay. Yeah, I watched the other episode that I watched like a couple of times, so I have better vision of the action in that. Yeah, I can't. I don't have anything.
No worries. The only thing I really had for this one is the goblin throws his pumpkin bomb and they're like in an underwater lab right at the window because he is a creature of chaos and he might die too, but he throws it to let in the sea to kill them all. I was like, that's a boss move. Yeah. It's hard to fight back against that.
That is huge. That's Deep Blue Sea level kind of decision making.
Yes. The last award is a Cassie compliment. It's like what moment reminded you of Cassie? But I don't know if you've ever met Cassie.
I mean, I've listened to Cassie on some shows, but I don't know if I know her well enough to liken anything to her.
We're gonna move on.
I mean, maybe here's the thing. I'm gonna go ahead and say I think that Cassie is a very sort of strong, self-possessed woman, and she would take the lips of the man she wants rather than asking permission. So Felicia kissing Peter / Spider-Man. There it is.
Cassie's going to kiss whoever she wants.
Yeah.
I like that. The moment that reminded me of Cassie is when she is she's creating her own justice, the goblin is, and then puts his face on the Statue of Justice. I think that's Cassie. She's a fucking nut. She thinks she's always right, and to the point that she makes more of herself. Fuck you, Cassie. That is all the time we have for not only As Tasmania, but the show in general. Nate, thank you so much for joining me. It means a lot to me. I think it means a lot to listeners, so they didn't have to hear me just monologue for an hour about all of this.
I mean, your dulcet tones are friend to all, so I wouldn't say that. But I really appreciate the opportunity to be on. It's a lot of fun. And this was a cool discovery moment for me to find some shows that I did not know about. And
hell yeah,
I love talking about these things. It was fun to check these out and go, oh wow, there's some cool stuff going on that I gotta soak my brain in a little more.
There is, so that's the problem. There is always so much cool stuff out there. We're gonna talk about some websites. I think everybody should go to popfilter.co. It's our main site. Everybody can learn about all the things we do there. Throw a little /Amazon on that. That's how you shop now. Bookmark that. It helps us out while you're shopping on Amazon. Nate, what websites of yours should people go check out?
They can check out the Debut Buddies podcast wherever you find your podcasts. Look for that. DEBUTBUDDIES. You can also go to readspaceboy.com if you want to check out any of those books that we alluded to in our website building. And, I don't know, check out pets.com. I think that's still around, right?
It's probably still around.
Yeah, somebody's got it.
Pets.com. When does that Eden book that you talked about a lot of intriguing books, but the Eden one perked my ears up.
That one drops July 31st. Yeah.
Okay. Do you remember the name of it?
It is titled Animalia.
Yeah,
by Pam Jones.
Nice.
And I will say, Pam is a phenomenal writer. She's probably the closest writer contemporary to someone like Shirley Jackson, where it's this very dense. The wording is pristine, the writing is gorgeous, and it's always like a psychological ride through all kinds of different phases of humanity and individuals. So, great stuff. She's really good.
Nice. Awesome. Another psychological ride through humanity is our show Movie of the Year. Right now, we're going through 1984. Last week, the most recent episode that came out is Paris, Texas, which is from the beginning of the season. We were like, that's going to win. So find out how we felt about it once we actually watched it. Coming up this week is 1984 Action Figure Draft. Part 1. So that'll be exciting. That's what's going on over the Movie of the Year. Follow us at Your Pop Filter on Instagram. You can find us at YouTube Pop Filter Co. Do you have a social media people should check out?
You can find me at Nate Regolia pretty much all the places. Instagram's probably the place where I'm actually paying attention the most, so go there.
So go there, dear listener. You can also email us, contact@popfilter.co. Next week on the Superhero Show, it is the series finale of Sweet Tooth. More My Adventures with Superman. We're going to find out what's going on with him and Kara. We're going to find out what's happening to the rest of the boys. But that is it for Nate. I'm Mike for Mike and Mike for Enough said.